In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create and respond to our action bar menu items right here. So what does the action bar do? The first thing is that it identifies the app, right? So any app user is going to have their icon, whatever it is. It's going to show up right here. It's going to help the user to navigate, right? So you have some of them that have tabs right here that let you know where you are within here, or if you had which is the name of the activity that you're currently in, right? The other thing is that it makes certain actions that we might want to perform sort of come to the forefront here, right? So in this particular app here, we might want to be able to change colors, right? Or maybe we want to be able to send an email, or maybe there's some other things that are hidden right here. So the action bar sort of gathers these things together. All right, so to get started on today's work, what I've done is actually put everything right into GitHub for us. So if you'd go ahead and click on the link, and once you do that, that's going to help you to get the code on your machine. Now, I don't care, honestly, where you put it. I typically recommend that you actually download it someplace that isn't your Eclipse workspace, and then we'll have Eclipse sort of just link to it. If you're a user of Git, you can clone it, and if you're familiar with how that works, great. You're not going to be able to push back up, but totally up to you if you want to do that. Otherwise, probably a very easy thing to do is just go ahead and download the zip file. All right, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so if we go here, again, these are your two choices. You can go ahead and download a zip if you'd like, and then put it wherever you want. I've actually downloaded mine, cloned it in the desktop. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie into that. All right, next thing that you're going to want to do is once you've downloaded it, you're going to have to import it into Eclipse. So just File, Import, and then under Android, there's something that says importing existing Android code, and then just go ahead and browse to where you had it. And then if you want to rename it, that should be just fine. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing on mine. So I'm going to say new other Android project from existing code, or alternatively I can do File, Import, Android, existing code, and it's going to bring up, either way, it's going to bring up the same thing right here, the same wizard. So I'm going to browse to where I have it. All right, so I have my hello menu here. So what do I want to do? I might want to do some renaming, right? So I could right click and do refactor, rename, which is also Alt-Shift-R. And I could rename the name of the project. So if you want to put on your own initials there, that'd be great. The other thing you can do is if you go into the resources and your strings, then there's going to be a string for the name of the app. And again, you can feel free to change that as well. All right, very good. So let's take a look to see what we have. So the starting code should save us some time, right? So I stripped out all the fragments. I added in a second activity for the activity that we're going to change the color of. I created the layouts and everything. It already took care of adding some colors and some strings, so it should make it much easier for us to use. And then I also added in some icons for our menu items, right? So it saved us from having to pull in a lot of stuff continually. So what I'd recommend right now is that you go ahead and run what you have and check out what you get for free. Okay, so my emulator came up here, and not too much going on here. I see that I do have a menu item here with the question mark, probably for some kind of help, and that there's something here for settings. All right, so let's see where we get those things from. Okay, first we'll talk a little bit about menus and how we create them. So honestly, your options are the same options that we've had all along, even for any other kind of view. Is you can do it in resources or you can do it in code. In resources, it's going to look like inflating some resource menu and then some main.xml right into your menu. That's going to be inside an onCreate options menu. Alternatively, what you could do in there is you could actually build up menu items from scratch and go ahead and set their icons and so on and add them to the menu, all these kind of things. Not what we're going to do if we can get away with it. And honestly, this is what Google says as well, right? So use the XML. So instead of instantiating them yourself, instead create an XML menu resource and inflate it, which means, of course, as we've seen all along here, to load it as an object in our code. And they say it's good because it separates our interface design from our code. And I hope that sounds really familiar to you, right? I mean, that's our first whole unit here: model, view, controller. And to the extent that we can separate out the view, the better it is. Okay, Google gives lots of examples here of menus. So here's one of their options here. Say I have a menu and it has an item in it, and then even a group here, a menu group, and another item. And we see that this item even has a sub-menu with another item in it, right? So this sort of, fairly complex, but pretty easy to understand once we get going and once we look at some examples. All right, so what we're going to do is go ahead and look to see what we have, right? So I want us to look at our main menu, see what's in there, and in fact, let's take a peek right here. So we always get a settings. We always get a settings one. It just kind of comes by default. It's never actually shown in the action bar, right? It's already shown as a little drop down on the overflow menu. And its title is just something that says like settings, right? So I added another one in here, all right, and we see that this guy right here also has an ID, so we can refer to it. It has an icon because I do want it to be visible, and I'm going to show it as an action if there's room to do so, all right? Which is going to depend on the orientation, the size of the device, and so on. And then of course I have something with a title, okay? So that if I long pressed on it, it would tell me what it was as a hint. All right, so what I'd like to do is to create a menu item that we can use to launch our color activity, and it's going to have very similar features to what we saw for help. All right, so let's go ahead and make that. Okay, so down here inside our main, I'm going to go into my menu, main. All right, and these are the ones that I looked at. All right, let's go ahead and make another item. Up to you whether you want to copy and paste or whether you want to use the sort of the graphical help here. We'll play around with a little bit of each. So let's go ahead and add another item. All right, and we'll see that this comes under here. Its ID is going to be one for the color. All right, its title. Let's go ahead and look to see what we have. So I put one here. So it's going to be menu in the main menu, the one that's going to be used for color. Okay. Condensed one I'm not going to worry about for now. We'll play around with that in a little bit. And an icon is going to be a drawable resource, and it doesn't seem like it wants to complete from here. So that actually might be a good reason to go back to the XML and save what we have in drawable. If I go there, I can see that I have a whole bunch of icons that are stored here, and the one that I'm going to use is the one for color, and that's my little edit one, that little pencil. Let me format that so it looks a little bit better and see what we've got here. So we have an ID, we have an icon. I didn't set anything about showing as far as when to show as an action, so I'm going to go back to this guy, and if I go down a bit, show as action. I can choose that, and I'm just gonna say if there's room to do so. All right, and that's all there is to do in the XML. All right, so what are we going to look at in code? So it turns out that there's a few different callbacks that have to do with menus. The first one here is onCreateOptions menu, and this is gonna be called when our menu item menu button is first pressed. Right, so it's going to basically inflate or create all the items in the menu so that we can play around with them in code. The second one is the callback that's kind of like onClick, right? So this is going to be when we actually select a menu item, this method's going to be called, and it's going to pass in the item, and we can do things like get its ID and so on. It's going to be very similar to how we used buttons onClick. All right, and finally there's one that I'll tell you about, but we're not actually going to use today. This one is called onPrepareOptions menu. And this again is going to be every time that they make a menu choice, it's going to be called just before it displays the menu. So in case we want to make any sort of last minute changes to the menu, so maybe something that updates based on the state of our app. Okay. Let's take a look and see what this would be in code. So here's what we have to start with, right? So the onCreateOptions menu is inflating our main menu, right? So just what we would expect, and we typically don't really mess around with onCreateOptions menu. As long as we've done our job of making a good menu in XML, there really shouldn't be much more for us to do. On option item selected, we'll see that the code that we're given goes ahead and grabs the ID and asks, hey, is it the settings one? And if it is, return true, which just means that you've handled it. Now, of course, it doesn't do anything here, and we're not going to change the setting ones today, but we're going to use the same idea when we write ours. Okay, and so what might it look like for our next one? Pretty simple. If we wanted to add ours, we just might want to check to see if the color ID menu item has been launched. Maybe have a log message. Maybe we even want to kick off an intent here to launch that other activity. All right, so let's go ahead and do that and see if it works. All right, so I'm going back into my code, into main activity, down here, and we'll see if that's just the code I had on the slide. So otherwise, I'm going to ask if ID is r.id.color, and if it is, I'm eventually going to return true. But before that, let's do a couple things here. So let's log, first of all, in hello menu, that the color activity menu item selected. Right. Something like that. And we'll save that guy, import log. I had already put in this constant here for hello menu. And what else do we want to do? Let's go ahead and kick off an activity. So we'll create an intent here, and I'll maybe call this color intent, and that's going to be a new intent with the current context, and then it's going to launch that color activity.class, and we'll tell it to start the activity with that color intent. Go ahead and import intent, and we'll run it and see how it does. Okay, so it launched, and let's notice a couple things. Let's notice that first of all, we actually have this extra icon showing up here, so that's pretty exciting. Let's see what happens when we click on it. All right, so we click, and I guess most importantly, it actually did launch the second activity. My logcat should have shown that. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and create a hello menu or HM filter. And we see here that it does say that the color activity menu item is selected, right? Which we expected. All right, very good. The second one says it has color. It doesn't. It has sort of a black color. But we'll see next time when we add sub-menu items how to do that. Okay. All right, sounds good. So successful response to a menu item. Okay, let's do another one. This one's kind of an interesting one. How would we create one to actually compose an email, right? Email's cool. I was just thinking about this because there's a nice little email icon that's available to us. So we're going to go ahead and use it. So we'll have an email ID, and like the other one, we'll show it if it's from. And I already supplied an icon and title, so we just have to basically find those. And then we're going to have some code that we can use to create an email intent right here. And this is actually a built-in one, kind of a neat one here. Intent.action send to, and we're going to pass it in some parameters, and then we'll start that activity. Actually out of a chooser from this, because it's possible that we could have multiple email clients, and we want to choose from the ones that we have. Right, so let's go ahead and play with this. Okay, so we're going to add our item first here, and just for kicks, we'll go ahead and add this one entirely in code. So ID We want to make a new ID here, one for email. The icon is going to be another action icon, one for making a new email. And then the title, menu, main, and I created one for email. Let's go ahead and reformat these guys so that they'll show up on their own line. And that one is also going to show up if room. So you notice we have 3 of them here. So we're probably going to start filling up our action bar. Let's go over to main activity and let's add something that will handle this, right? So if ID is equal to r.id and we used email a minute ago. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to be adding in the work that we did before. So I'll create an email intent, new intent, and there's a constant for this guy. So intent.action underscore send to, right? And we need to pass it in at a URL. So URI dot from parts. Okay. And we're going to be giving a scheme here. So let's see. So mail to. Oops, should be lowercase. And then the person that it's going to, you can go ahead and add your own address here, or whatever address you want to test with. Please don't add mine. I suppose you could. It'd be kind of interesting. At least I'd know you were working on things. So we'll pass a null for the last parameter here. And this email intent, we're going to be putting in some extras, and there are some extras that are defined specifically for this. So there's a constant for extra subject, right? So this would be the subject of our email here. So I could say, you know, from me, whatever I want to put in. I'm going to put an extra, and we'll say for this guy it's going to be extra, and the email intent allows us to put in extra text. And then you can put in the whatever text to the email you want to put here. You know, hey Matt, this is your Android phone. Please rescue me. Something like that. All right, and then we're going to start an activity here, and we'll say intent.createChooser. And the intent itself, and then we can put in a title that might say something like, you know, send email to yourself. And then finally, the last thing that we do on any of these menu items is we return true. Okay, not too worried about the details of all these things. Just thought it'd be fun to play around with here, right? The main thing to notice here is that we're looking for the ID of the menu item that we pressed, and we do something, and then we return true to show that we've handled it, right? If the menu item that was pressed is none of these, then it's going to return to the superclass or activities on option item selected, right? So basically we haven't handled it. Okay, so I've launched my emulator here, and I see that it doesn't show up, but it should be here somewhere. So send an email is here. And I click this guy, and unfortunately it doesn't work. Let's see. I'm going to try to get this guy working on my phone so I can show it to you there. I guarantee this is more fun if you have a phone and you can actually get it to work. Okay, let's see what we have here. So this guy launched, and I can hopefully see my menu item up here. So if I click here and say send email, then I give it a second, and it's going to be trying to compose a new email, and you'll see it's trying to send it to me. It has the text in there, and it has a subject, right? So if I go back, so actually it's kind of interesting. Whoops. So this guy right here actually went into my email app. What I really wanted to do was click back and not up, and that leads us to a couple changes that we might want to make to our app, right? So the first thing is, you notice that there wasn't any room for it, right? Now it turns out in landscape mode, there actually is room, right? So if I take my emulator here and I rotate this guy, Control F11, and give it a second, we'll see that it actually has room for that neat email icon, and that's great. But of course, when I go back to portrait mode, there's probably only room for just a couple of icons here, and honestly, I think the email one is indeed more important than help. So I could either rearrange the order of them, or I could just set help as something that never shows up, right? It's always going to show up over here with the settings in this guy. Sort of more interestingly, is that I also can use an action bar for navigation. As we saw that then when I clicked when I clicked the icon, essentially, it went back home, and unfortunately for me, I mean, it sort of went back home into Gmail, and it didn't go back to mine. But what I could do is, even within my own activities, I can say if I should be able to navigate back up to home, the home of my app, so to speak. And so the way that I do that is simply just as I set this display home is up enabled, and pass it true, and then in the manifest I have to tell my child activity which activity is its parent. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, here I am in my color activity. Not that much going on here right now, but what I want to do is get its action bar, and then call the set display home is up enabled. All right, and we'll let that guy just be true. All right, and that's going to let it go up, but then I need to specify where up is. So I'm going to go back to my manifest here, and in this manifest, I'm going to go to this color activity, and within here, I'm going to set the following. I'm going to say Android parent activity name, right? And then here, it's just going to be the name of this main activity. So I'll copy and paste this guy right here, the main activity, like so. And we'll run this guy. Okay, so the emulator is popped up. So I'm going to click the little crayon here, and it should launch my other one. And one thing that it did differently here, and hopefully you notice this, but right here there's now a little caret to the left, and that's my home caret, or my up. So if I click that guy, it goes back to my main activity. All right. Now honestly, in this simple little app, that's really no different than just clicking the back button. But you can imagine if you had a fairly complicated app where you had lots of navigation, then home isn't necessarily the last place where you were, right? So home and back would take you to different places. All right, so kind of neat, interesting how we can use the action bar for navigation. Right. That's about all we have for you for this lesson. I hope you join us for our next one, which promises to be much shorter. Our next one is going to be about submenus. All right, see ya.